Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, March 13th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, it's our position preview updates. A lot has changed since February. We'll talk about the biggest injuries, things we've learned, and players to target most at each position. My idea for this pod is for this to be a draft guide. If you're drafting in the next week or so, we will do another, I think probably the players we target most or favorites to draft at each position next week as well. So 2 weeks in a row, we'll have you with a bunch of draft guide information, things that matter most this time of year. Let's quickly get the news out of the way. And guys, we dodged a bullet. And in particular, I mean, Scott dodged a bullet in the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational because it was almost 2 years in a row that you lost the top pick, Scott, at least for some. Bobby Witt left Wednesday after getting hit by a pitch on the left forearm. Jeff Passan tweeted that Witt did not suffer any broken bones. He also added that while the timetable for his return is unclear, Witt is expected to avoid a long absence. So it's mostly good news. Based on that tweet, I think maybe he could still miss a little bit of time here. I don't know if it causes any, uncertainty for opening day, but the good news is there are no broken bones for Bobby Witt.
That is very good news. They did say that the Royals official Twitter account said they'd reevaluate him in the morning. But Bobby Witt himself tweeted out, he tweeted out a thumbs up and the prayer hands.
And Vinny Pasquantino quote tweeted it saying with a picture of him.
Yeah, he snapped a photo of him sending out that tweet using both of the hands. So I think it's probably okay. I think it's probably okay. Hopefully you're not drafting in the next 12 hours. But yeah, I think it'll be okay. We'll obviously know more tomorrow.
I had somebody tweet at me right after it happened and said, my draft is in an hour. I have the second pick. What do I do? And I said I'd probably take Aaron Judge just because we didn't.
Yeah.
But then the Jeff Passan tweet came out. And so, look, I guess there's still a little bit of risk for opening day. But if anybody is drafting in the next day or two and we don't have anything concrete, are you guys still taking Bobby Witt first overall, second? What do you think?
I think it's fine to drop him to third just because the margins between these three players at the top, Ohtani, Judge, and Witt, for anybody who's brand new to fantasy baseball, is nothing. Like they're all, I think in my Roto rankings, the exact same dollar value.
Mine too.
And so it's basically a three-way coin flip.
But if we get more clearance between now and then, probably just take Bobby Witt where you were taking him all along.
Yep. All right, Gunnar Henderson hit in the cage on Wednesday while also fielding ground balls. Both sessions went extremely well, according to his manager, Brendan Hyde. Henderson is still recovering from an intercostal strain, and his ADP over the past couple of days over at the NFBC, if I can pull this up, is currently 10.9. Does that sound okay for Gunnar Henderson?
I
believe I'm 10th and you guys have him 9th. So
yep.
If anything, everyone else is being more cautious than we are.
Yeah. Average return to play timetable for intercostal strains put him right around the 21st. So there was plenty of time for him to get ready for opening day. If it was the average, obviously, but there's no indication right now to be worried about it, I think.
All right, CJ Abrams exited with cramping in both of his quads, but it's scheduled to return to the lineup on Thursday, something to watch there. Adolis Garcia returned as the DH on Wednesday, his first time playing since dealing with that mild left oblique injury. There has been some talk that A.J. Smith-Shawver is still in the mix for a Braves rotation spot. Scott, are you buying that at all?
Oh, I'm buying it somewhat. I don't think it would be to replace Grant Holmes, who's looked fine this spring.
Yes.
But it's Ian Anderson. He's the problem. He's issued 13 walks in 12 innings, struck out only 6. Only 4 hits allowed, so it's, he's avoided giving up runs, but control has been a problem for him throughout. Even after he returned from Tommy John surgery last year in the minors, it was a problem. And it doesn't look like he's made many strides here. Because he's out of options, they'll probably try to include him on the roster in some way, but I don't know that he's going to win that 5th spot.
Do you guys have any interest in AJ Smith-Shawver in deeper leagues?
I mean, he's still only 22. He's very young, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
He's very young and
22. Yeah, he just turned 22 in November.
And very new to pitching. I mean, I guess we're 2 years beyond his debut when we were saying that, but it's still nonetheless true. And does have a lot of theoretical upside, has looked pretty good this spring. I could probably come up with 24 pitchers who have won me over even more this spring than Smith-Shawver has. So I doubt the draft would go on long enough for me to get to him.
Tyler Mahle was scratched Tuesday with forearm soreness, and then Cody Bradford was scratched Wednesday with left elbow soreness. Mahle's MRI came back clean. He hopes to pitch in a few days, and Cody Bradford will be shut down from throwing for the next 4 to 5 days. If either, both is not ready for opening day, that probably means Jack Leiter is in the rotation, right? I think.
I would imagine so, yes.
Do you have interest, Chris, in Jack Leiter?
Chris's guy.
I'm very interested in Jack Leiter if he's going to be in the rotation. I think he's a super talented pitcher. There are big questions, including especially the control. He walked 5 in, I think, 3 innings on Tuesday. That's always going to be an issue for Jack Leiter, and it's just a question of whether the stuff can be good enough to overcome it. For the most part, this spring it has been. I think this was his first outing with multiple walks. So, yeah, I'll take a flyer on that stuff. You know, he's thrown a new changeup, a new sinker. I think he's looked very impressive. So I will. I'll take a chance on Jack Leiter if he's in the rotation. And look, there's an outside chance there's going to be a spot for Kumar Rocker. And
yeah,
the Rangers. Bruce Bochy came out today and said that there will be times when they skip Jacob deGrom and they put him on the IL to save his innings. He is on an innings limit for sure. That we got confirmation of that today. So, I
drop him back down, Scott.
There are going to be opportunities for Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker early in the season.
Yeah, and I know Kumar Rocker has gotten knocked around this spring. I was deciding whether I should go for the obvious pun there or not. I opted against it. But he did apparently have a throw on the backfields the other day, and it went a lot better. I'm trying to find my note on it. So he felt like he's addressed some mechanical issues that were going on. And I don't think he's out of the running yet. And I would be more excited about him than Jack Leiter personally, if he were to claim that spot, but long way to go still.
Scott, are you, you might've just said this and I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. Cody Bradford, are you backing off? I know you like him.
I mean, I have to a little bit.
Okay.
Elbow, MRI came back clean. They're going to shut him down for 4 to 5 days, which sounds like what you do with a pitcher in spring training anyway, right? And it's a little weird, that timetable they're giving. But with the key being, they're going to reevaluate him at that point. It's not just like, okay, 4 or 5 days off, you're fine. Maybe. But I think the likeliest scenario is he spends some time on the IL to open the season. It may not be long. And we're talking about a guy drafted outside of the top 300 even before that. So now Cody Bradford might be, I don't know. I'm curious to see how late he goes in TGFBI, a 15-team league. We're at the point where I would normally take him, but I'm going to wait another 30 picks and see if he's still there.
Your boys' AL only labor team taking some beatings early on. I already had to swap out George Kirby for Martin Perez. That hurt.
Oh,
now I'm swapping out Cody Bradford for Bo Brisky.
Yes, might be the closer for the Tigers. You never know.
So yeah, really happy with the start so far.
I am sorry. The Dodgers optioned Hae-Sung Kim to the minors. And if you're wondering why I'm saying it like that, it's spelled Hae-Sung Kim. I listened to a Dodgers broadcast. They said they confirmed with him it's Hae-Sung Kim. That's how you say his name. So there you go. Andy Pages is a possibility to be in center field with Tommy Edman at second base. Another possibility I read is that Miguel Rojas could play second with Tommy Edman in center field. I think the more fantasy-friendly approach here would obviously be Andy Pages getting played.
Yeah, I would think so.
He hasn't been great this spring, and there's a lot of questions about his defense. James Outman has also been pretty bad. So, yeah, they might go with Edman in center and Rojas at second, which would be kind of lame.
They still have Kike Hernandez on the roster too.
When you say Pages hasn't, he's hit 214. It's not like his strikeout rate is concerning. He's hit a home run. It's the sort of thing where it's like, I don't want to put too much on the spring sample here. He obviously earned his keep last year and has a lot of upside, does Andy Pages. So I think he's being undervalued in fantasy. I'd love taking him late in those deep 5 outfielder leagues for a bench spot.
All right. The Cardinals are quote unquote torn on whether to start Victor Scott or Michael Ciani in center field. Speaking of the Cardinals, Jordan Walker is making progress, but remains without a timetable to return to game action. Victor Scott has been awesome this spring. Obviously, it would be pretty cool to see what he can do if with everyday playing time, maybe he can make use of that speed for fantasy in deeper category leagues. So the hope is Victor Scott, but we'll see what happens there. Some Statcast data from Wednesday. Casey Mize continued to pitch well, 3 1/3 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. His splitter velocity up 3 miles per hour. He has not allowed an earned run in 11 1/3 innings this spring. Joey Cantillo from the Guardians got hit hard, but he also had 9 strikeouts and 17 whiffs on 67 pitches, including 13 on his changeup. Mike Clevenger fired a clean inning of relief. His fastball's up nearly 2 miles per hour. The changeup 3.4 and the cutter 5.3. He could be the White Sox closer to start the season. Robert Suarez got hit hard again. He gave up 4 earned runs on a walk and 5 hits. Fastball and sinker velocity both down 2.5 miles per hour for Robert Suarez. This was not on Statcast, but I saw that Zebby Matthews pitched awesome again on Wednesday. 3 perfect innings, 5 strikeouts. There was a tweet that he was sitting 96, 97 miles per hour on the fastball. So he's back from the ankle injury. He's looked really good. I kind of think Zebby Matthews might be in the Twins rotation to start the season. Anything else on him or these other names with Statcast data?
Yeah, I was getting really excited about Matthews before the ankle injury. I worried that would just he already had long odds to make the rotation, and I figured that might eliminate his chances. But now that he's back and he's still firing it in there, his control numbers in the minors are stellar. So if he can up his stuff in that way without losing some of that control, I think Zebby Matthews could be a big surprise. He'll definitely be on my Deep Sleepers article set to come out Friday.
The word you were looking for regarding Zebby Matthews' walk numbers, Lilliputian. I don't know if that's the way you pronounce it. Gulliver's Travels, the island with the little people. It's called Lilliput.
I think it's
okay.
Lilliputian?
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know.
I have heard that word.
That's a
before.
classic Chris Towers move, saying a word that he's read and written, but never actually said out loud, making myself look dumb.
You thought you'd look smart.
But yeah, Zebby Matthews is an interesting one just because the control is so good that if the stuff takes a step forward, you can really start to dream on what it could be. Like if you're walking, his walk rate in minor league career is like 2.7% or something bonkers. So even if you put it at 4% in the majors, you get to a 21% strikeout rate, which would be basically average. That's going to be a real nice K- walk ratio. So Zebby Matthews, if he's in that rotation, and right now it's Simeon Wood Richardson and Chris Paddock ahead of him.
What do we exactly see from Chris Paddock? Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him, but it doesn't seem like it's going to work out. I do want to talk about Casey Mize because he's added another tick or 2 of velocity this spring after adding a couple of ticks last year. He's sitting 96, 97 now. Splitter has always been pretty good, and now he's got like 3 different types of slider. He's got kind of a harder gyro slider. He's got a little bit of a sweeper and then one that's in between. And I don't know if any of those pitches are going to be great, but he threw them a lot today. And it really seems to be a point of emphasis for him. The command was not good, but I'm mildly interested in Casey, the last stand of Casey Mize. Yeah.
All right, a few things to promote before we hit a break. Thanks to everyone watching live. Hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, youtube.com/fantasy baseball today. 30K by opening day. 30K by opening day. We are getting
30K by opening. We're very close.
We are
Yeah, we're gonna
dangerously
get there.
close.
I'm not worried.
We're about 150 away. So we
We're
might
gonna
I
get
want
there tomorrow.
40K by opening.
We're gonna
day.
get there tomorrow for sure.
31K by opening day. Let's do it. Later today, when you are listening to this, our first ever FBT mock draft mega stream. Here's what you need to know. We are going live at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time right here on YouTube. We are starting things with a 12-team head-to-head points mock on CBS. All three of us will be there for that one. Next up, we'll have a 12-team head-to-head categories with daily lineups on Yahoo. That will be around 4:15 p.m. Eastern time. That will be Scott, me, and B. Don from Razball. He does lots of mock drafts with us. Third will be a 12-team head-to-head points with daily lineups on ESPN around 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. That will be Chris and Sky Dombrowski, who is the defending Tout Wars head-to-head champ.
I'll be trying to take him down this Sunday.
That's right. Fourth will be our NFBC RotoWire Online Championship, and that will be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That is a 12-team roto draft with an overall prize. All three of us will be in that one. And
we will be drafting that team collectively.
So
that'll be fun.
That's going to be like, if you're going to catch any part, I think that's the one, because we've never done that before. I imagine there will be some animosity brewing throughout.
Yeah. I am almost certain the people we are drafting against will be watching live. So we kind of have to be secretive about the players we want until after we draft them.
No, we're talking it all through.
No, we got to use like the StreamYard private chat to figure out who we want. And lastly, we'll do an underdog best ball draft at 9:45, 10 o'clock, something like that for whoever's still up, whoever's around at that point. I'll tweet out the link for that draft. So if you want to play against us, check out my Twitter X account between 9:30 and 10 p.m. I'll tweet out the link for that. The NFBC and Underdog drafts are ones that we're actually playing out. They're not mock drafts, but, SEO, mock draft, mega stream. It sounds better. Each draft will be turned into an individual video on YouTube and an individual podcast in the audio feed as well. Let's take a break. When we return, updates to our position previews right after this.
The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in. We are talking updates to our position previews. We did those all the way back in early, mid-February. A lot has changed since then. Lots of injuries, lots of news, lineup spots. Plus, we'll give out our favorites to draft. Let's start things off with catchers. We actually have quite a bit to talk about a catcher. Francisco Alvarez has a fractured hamate bone in his left hand. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks. Might not see him until early to mid-June. Sean Murphy has a fractured rib and is out 4 to 6 weeks. Expected back late April. Did I not do the math correct on Francisco Alvarez?
I think that math is a little off, yeah.
So
I would say early to mid-May.
If he had it in... Yeah, if you had an early...
About a week ago, right?
Yeah, that would be like early to mid-May. So, yeah. I was way off with that one. So, there you go. Francisco Alvarez, still worth drafting, I think, and stashing on an IL spot. Will Smith has been dealing with a bone bruise in his ankle since last June. He says it has not affected his swing. Austin Wells could lead off for the Yankees against right-handed pitching. So, how far did you guys lower Alvarez and Murphy in your rankings? Are they still worth drafting?
Well, 2 catcher leagues, they're both worth drafting, but probably only 2 catcher leagues. And that was true. Well, it was borderline, I guess, for Alvarez, but it was true for Murphy. The thing about Murphy is I ranked him pessimistically to begin with. He has top 5 potential. We all know that. We've seen it before. And I had him 14th originally because I knew you could get him that late. And I liked taking advantage of the sleeper appeal. I've dropped him 1 spot to 15th because the timeline they've given is short. Now you got to safeguard against the possible catastrophic scenario of the cracked rib messing up his swing all year, as we saw for the strained oblique he suffered on opening day. But for the upside, I'll take him as the 15th catcher still and hope to get him back after 2 weeks. I dropped Francisco Alvarez to 22nd. And I think hamate bones are especially difficult, and it's his catching hand. So I know some have suggested that means it could take even longer than what's being put out there. I'm less interested in gambling on him, and if it's a league without IL spots, there's just no way you're gonna stash him long enough to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. Chris, have you lowered Will Smith at all in your rankings after finding out he's still dealing with this bone bruise? 10 months later.
Not really. I'm just a little mildly worried about him in general, and so it wouldn't take much to drop him behind JT Realmuto or Shea Langoliers, Will Smith is 111, JT Realmuto is 121, Shea Langoliers is 124. It wouldn't take much to drop him behind those guys, but I still think the playing time is going to be pretty strong. I still think he's a very good bat. The fact that he says it didn't impact his swing, well, the numbers line up pretty well. I think his slide began before the injury.
This is Will Smith we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not terribly excited about drafting him. And as we're talking, I'm considering just pulling the trigger and moving JT Realmuto ahead of him. I think Realmuto's a little undervalued this year.
Yeah, I've been tempted to do that too. It's just my actual drafting experience with people who are very plugged into fantasy baseball by and large.
Yeah.
Realmuto's sliding like
people
crazy
hate JT Realmuto
for no reason that I can discern.
Yeah.
And I every draft that happens, I kick myself because I'm on the verge of pulling the trigger and being the one who benefits from that huge discount, and somebody jumps in before me. But that's the sort of thing where I want to keep Will Smith ahead, just so I'm not responsible for making somebody miss out on the big Realmuto discount that I'm seeing happen, which isn't necessarily reflected in ADP. So maybe I shouldn't worry about it, but I don't know. It's weird what's been happening with Realmuto and expert drafts.
Who are your favorite catcher ones and catcher twos and for those in 2 catcher leagues that you have been targeting? Just give me names for this.
Well, my default was Wilson Contreras, but he's like a top 70 pick over the last 2 weeks. People are going wild.
The price
he went for $21 in the roto auction we did the other day.
Yeah, I think we may have jumped the shark on Wilson Contreras. So I think my favorite to draft is now Ivan Herrera.
It's a very cheap one. What about in a 1 catcher league?
In a 1 catcher league, it's, I don't know, I guess William Contreras. I know we don't.
Yeah. That's the format where I want to pay up for a catcher, because
either him or Rutschman.
It's a shallow format, so you don't have as many scarcities you're having to juggle, and you have fewer lineup spots to fill. So that means you also want more impact from each one. So that I am in 1 catcher leagues, I am usually coming away with one of William Contreras or Adley Rutschman. If not, then I guess JT Realmuto at this point, because I love how late he goes. In 2 catcher leagues, I go really cheap at catcher because they just tend to get pushed up draft boards, and 2 catcher leagues mean you also have all those outfield spots to fill, all those extra infield spots to fill. And it's just, it's not worth paying the premium for the clear difference makers. And then once you get past the clear difference makers, it's like, I don't have a lot of confidence in anyone. So I draft a lot of Travis d'Arnaud in 2 catcher leagues and Joey Bart, and really just, I guess Sean Murphy at this point. I've gotten him in a couple because his price is it's fallen so much.
It's starting to be Drake Baldwin for me, and also Hunter Goodman.
Yeah,
I don't mind in a 2 catcher league the idea of picking Sean Murphy and Drake Baldwin at the end of the draft, with the understanding I'll pick up a 3rd catcher for the 2 weeks Sean Murphy is out, but then just kind of seeing how it plays out between Baldwin and Murphy and going from there.
Yeah, I still want Wilson Contreras, but the price is getting really, really high. Usually we'll settle on JTR if I miss out on Contreras. I still like Sean Murphy, like you guys mentioned. I'll take him and Drake Baldwin as kind of like a handcuff situation, I guess. And in TGFBI, I took Sean Murphy, Danny Jansen, and then Drake Baldwin later on. So happy to attack it that way in a 2-casher league. Let's go over to first base. There is a lot going on here. Freddie Freeman is still recovering from offseason ankle surgery, will require treatment all year. Sounds like he will not play day games after night games, at least in the first half of the season. Vlad Jr. turned down an extension from the Blue Jays and is entering his contract year. Pete Alonso signed with the Mets. That's right. He was still a free agent when we did our first base preview. Christian Walker is dealing with a left oblique injury, has dealt with that same injury in the past. He has not yet been cleared to swing a bat. Spencer Steer is dealing with right shoulder discomfort, had a cortisone injection, could start the season on the IL. So how much have you guys lowered Freeman, Walker, Steer, if at all?
Freeman, none, at least not behind any other first baseman.
Yeah.
I may have for Roto put him behind Jazz Chisholm, but not a significant move down the rankings. Walker, I dropped him behind Josh Naylor because I was about equal on those two anyway, but it doesn't sound like the Astros are particularly concerned. MRI didn't even really show a strain. So I think Walker's probably safe. Just
still top 10
caution there. Let me count. Yeah, still top 10 for Walker. And who else did you ask about?
Spencer Steer.
I moved Spencer Steer way down. I dropped him behind like Mountcastle and Goldschmidt, and I was already low on Goldschmidt. I'm gonna have to move him back up. The latest reports on Steer are more encouraging. Seems like the I think it was a cortisone injection he got. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it helped him kind of get over the hump there with that injury where he just wasn't making any progress.
I dropped him to 140. He's still 13th at first base. I did add him to my bust column. Just always felt like a fairly slim margin for error here, and now he's hurt and presumably will not be playing much non-first base positions. So I do think there are some paths where this goes really poorly for Spencer Steer.
Oh yeah, he was a bust for me even before the injury. So I wouldn't say I'm like optimistic on him in a general sense, but he doesn't need to go. I probably have him like 20th at first base. He doesn't need to go that late anymore.
Freeman's ADP has been dropping a little bit. He's 27.1 in the NFBC over the past week. So going behind names like William Contreras, Jackson Merrill, Trey Turner. Does that sound right? Or maybe
I think Trey Turner, I always had him behind Trey Turner, but those other two, I don't really have a problem with it. I think I still want Freeman more than I want William Contreras or Jackson Merrill, two players who I'm high on. But yeah, I think too much has been made of the Freeman thing.
Yeah, Steer is dropping like a rock, by the way. His ADP down to 180 over the past week over at the NFBC. Who is your favorite first baseman to target?
My favorite first baseman to target, since I'm going first here apparently, is...
I can go first. Michael Togley for me. If I'm waiting at the position, I'm perfectly comfortable taking him. I expect 250 average, 30 homers, 10 steals from him.
In Roto, it's probably Ryan Mountcastle because he goes so late outside of the top 220, I believe, still on average.
Yeah, can't be in points, though.
No, not in points because he doesn't have good enough plate discipline. He's barely startable in points, I would say. But in Roto, I think there's 30 homer potential with the fences moving back in Camden Yards for Mountcastle. In a points league and something shallower like that, probably Vinny Pasquantino for the plate discipline. He just gains so much value in that format, and I'm not sure it's always appreciated as fully as it should be. But I don't shy away from if I have an early, like if I pick with the first 4 picks of the draft, so I'm there at the 2-3 turn, there's a good chance I'm taking one of Harper or Freeman there and just addressing first base that way.
Yeah, ideally would like to get one of my top 10 if it's possible. I want to get Cody Bellinger, have not been able to do it. He keeps rising. The ADP is up to 85.6 over the past week. And starting the offseason, that was like 110, 120. So now a top 90 pick for Bellinger. And I do like Vinny Pasquantino as well. Let's move over to second base. One of our favorites, Jordan Westburg, dealt with a back injury recently, but he returned to games last week. Nico Horner, still rehabbing from off-season flexor tendon surgery. The plan is for him to play in minor league games this week while the Cubs are in Japan so that he can be ready for the domestic opening day on March 27th. Turns out Bryson Stott was playing through some type of elbow injury last season. Perhaps that helps his chances of a bounce back this year if healthy. Sure seems like Jackson Holliday will be on the Orioles opening day roster and says that he plans to steal 20-plus bases this season. Luis Rengifo is dealing with a hamstring issue and is uncertain for opening day. Apparently, he played in a minor league game Wednesday, but I have not seen any updates on how that went. And we're still not sure if Christian Campbell will be on the Red Sox opening day roster. They are dealing with quite a few injuries, a few different players that are going to start on the IL. He can play in the outfield, but so far, Christian Campbell is 5 for 30 this spring with 12 strikeouts and a 486 OPS. So has not really been taking advantage of this opportunity.
It sounds like if he does make the team, it'll more likely be in the outfield as a fill-in for Wilyer Abreu, who has to regain some strength after dealing with a stomach illness. But I would lean no on that at this point. Like I think it would take Campbell getting really hot here over the next week and a half to put him back in the running. I think the Red Sox wanted to give him a job, but he just hasn't delivered on his end of the bargain there. So if he doesn't make the team, I think he's still a great stash. He's going around pick 300. I would stash him in any league, even ones where stashing is difficult, because I don't think it'll be long before Christian Campbell's up, especially given the defensive versatility. But I lean no on him making the opening day roster.
Agreed.
Do you guys think Nico Horner and Luis Rengifo will be ready for opening day?
March 27th?
Yeah.
March 20th. He won't be on the opening day roster, but the second opening day roster, yes.
He won't be playing on he won't be on the Tokyo team for the Cubs, but probably the 27th. It's not a guarantee. I'm finding I'm drafting Nico Horner a lot. I like him in both formats. I like the price. Roto, he's great because he helps in batting average and stolen bases at a point where you're not going to find many players who help at both. And in points leagues, look, 2 years ago, Nico Horner averaged more points per game than Jose Altuve did last year. So it's a lot of doubles, doesn't strike out much. And when it's 2 points a steal, his stolen bases add up in that format.
All right. Who are your favorite targets at second base?
Well, I kind of already gave one Horner. In theory, it's Westburg. Same reason I like Mountcastle. Guy who hits the ball very hard, right-handed hitter. The power should play even better in Camden now. Obviously, that was a detriment to right-handed power hitters before, and now not so much with the fences moving in. So in theory, it's Westburg. I haven't actually been drafting a lot of Westburg. The two second basemen I've been drafting most often are Horner when I wait. I've been drafting a lot of Ozzie Albies, which I didn't really see coming. I think what I think it is there are a lot of second basemen who feel like they're going too low, and Albies is among them. And we get to that point in the draft, and a lot of times there's just not an obvious alternative pick for me. So I'm like, all right, I'll take Albies, who I think some people view as injury prone because he broke 2 bones last year. He broke 2 bones in 2022, and so missed a lot of time those years. When he doesn't break bones, he plays 150 games.
Yeah,
and is a 3 category stud while also being decent in stolen bases and batting average. So I think Albies in the round 5 range is great.
Yeah, I like Brandon Lau. I like Jackson Holliday. I'm drafting a lot of Jonathan India if I'm waiting. I actually kind of like the depth at second base in like the 10 to 24 range. So if I don't get an early round guy, I'm perfectly willing to wait. But I have drafted Jose Altuve multiple times in the last week. So he might end up being my most drafted one in leagues that we're actually playing out.
All right, for me, still trying to get Westberg anywhere that I can. The price on him is also rising. He is top 75 pick now, and I also do really like Thairo Estrada as a late round middle infielder in a Roto league. I think he can be a cheaper version of like a Bryson Stott or Andres Jimenez. Scott, sounds like you wanted to say something else. Or are you good?
I'm just paying too much attention to the commenters. They are saying obvious things that they apparently think we don't know, such as Jordan Westberg is in line to play third for the Orioles. Yes, but he's eligible at second in fantasy, and that's more likely where you'll use him.
Yes.
And also
I don't know if you've heard Nico Horner's hurt.
Nico Horner's hurt. Yeah, hasn't played a game that when we were addressing that. And yeah, he may not be ready in time, but the Cubs have suggested he will be. If he's not, I don't think it'll be long that he's on the IL.
All right, let's move into third base. It is March 13th, and Rafael Devers still has not played in a spring training game. Hoping to play in a simulated game Thursday, still working his way back from injuries to both shoulders last year. Plus, there's some behind-the-scenes drama maybe about Alex Bregman playing third base, and should Devers play third? Should he be the DH? I hope he's healthy. That's the main thing here. Jazz Chisholm will play second base for the Yankees, so he'll pick up that eligibility. He has third and outfield eligibility already. Junior Caminero dealt with some back tightness, but he has returned to spring games. His ADP is also rising like crazy. He is a top 70 pick in the past week. Alex Bregman signed with the Red Sox. Yes, when we recorded our position previews, he was still unsigned, and that is a great landing spot for him. He is another riser up to 105 with the ADP there. Matt Shaw dealt with an oblique injury in February, but made his spring debut on March 2nd. The plan is for him to travel with the Cubs for their Tokyo series. And a late riser here, I wanted to mention, Astros prospect Cam Smith is having a huge spring. There is some talk that he could make the opening day roster. They're trying to get him some defensive reps in the outfield as well. The big name is Rafael Devers. He is falling fast. His ADP over the past week, 39.6. Are you buying the dip?
I thought I was being aggressive moving him down, but I guess not. He's 37 for me. So I haven't drafted him yet. I am pretty nervous about the lingering nature of this shoulder injury. There's a part of me that just thinks that this is all kind of, I'm going to say another word. I don't actually know how you pronounce kayfabe.
Kayfabe, that is real. That's a wrestling term. Let's go.
Where
I don't know that one.
Is it like actually the shoulder, or is this just like managing personalities and ego behind the scenes? I would feel better if it was the latter than if it was actually just that he's not healthy enough to play yet. But I don't really know. There's a chance that you get a steal on Rafael Devers if he's just fine.
Yeah, if he keeps falling that much. 40, where does Manny Machado normally go? I think they should be valued about equally now. I haven't moved Devers down a whole tier.
Yeah, I have Machado ahead of Devers, but I think it's one spot.
The past week at NFBC, it's 33.6 for Machado, 39.5 for Devers.
I obviously don't know. I'm just kind of reading between the lines here. I have not even seen the suggestion that Devers won't be ready for opening day. It's just, he might have to play DH. I don't get that the concern level about his availability is particularly high.
That's why part of me is just like, is this all just like a front to like, he just didn't have enough time to get ready to play third base, guys. I guess he's going to have to be DH. And it helps them do what they want to do while letting Rafael Devers save face a little bit. There's a part of me that thinks that might be the answer here.
So I guess I'm saying if you can get Devers as late as 40, go for it.
Yeah.
Wait, at the very least, wait until Machado goes at this point. I mean, by the time you're listening, who knows, maybe you're listening to this a week or two from now and it's all in the past and Devers is hitting home runs in spring training. But if you're not, if you're listening to it immediately, and I would say the approach is wait till Machado goes and then jump in there and grab Devers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are you guys paying the increased price on Caminero and Bregman? It's a top 70 pick for Caminero. It's around 100th for Bregman.
Yes on Bregman, probably not on Caminero.
I think they should be going the reverse of that, to be perfectly honest.
Wow.
Okay. I one of my bold predictions is Bregman has a career high batting average this year. banging a bunch of singles and doubles off the green monster because his swing is perfectly geared for that. I think he's going to come close to stud production at around pick 100.
And if you play on CBS in our head-to-head points leagues where Bregman routinely is great in that format, his ADP is 52.7 in head-to-head points leagues. So just keep that in mind. He's better in that format, and you will have to use an earlier round pick if you want to get Devers there. Who is your favorite to target at third base?
Isaac Paredes for all three of us. Certainly for Scott and also for me. But yeah, I think Isaac Paredes is just one of the most obviously undervalued players. I don't know if it's just that projection systems don't buy what he did. But he was a 31 homer player in 2023. He was on a 26 homer pace last year before getting traded to the Cubs, landed in Houston, which is just about the perfect spot. I think he should be like a 10th or 11th round pick, and he often lasts until the 15th or 16th round. So
he lives down, to put a little more detail on it, he lives down that left field line. It's 315 at Tropicana Field, very close. It's the same in Houston, except it remains shallow in left field because of the Crawford boxes going all the way to left center. So it is the perfect swing to maximize that power output for Paredes. And I think he'll put up those sort of numbers in Houston that, to evoke the name again, Alex Bregman did the past couple years. So it probably is Paredes. I don't mind waiting to take him as my third base because I'm that confident in how his swing's going to play at that venue. But often because of how much I like Bregman and how late I think he's going, it doesn't even come to that. I like taking Bregman a lot too.
Yeah, if it's not Paredes, it's probably Eugenio Suarez for me.
Yeah. This is kind of a cheap answer, I guess you could say. I really like the third round guys. I like Austin Riley and I like Machado. Whenever they're there, I typically target those guys. And
love Jose Ramirez.
I will say it in points leagues, I would avoid that range of third base. Jazz Chisholm, Austin Riley, Devers, even Machado.
They're all a little worse in points.
Yeah. Riley especially, who feels like the safe one of the group. And meanwhile, Bregman and Paredes specifically are both elevated in points. So that's all the more reason to just kind of skip that whole second tier at third base.
All right, let's take our final break. When we return, we'll get to shortstop updates right after this.
Sail GP lands in California. The Port of LA welcomes the 12 world-class teams to the epicenter of glitz, glamour, and Hollywood.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today we are updating our position previews from way back in February. And next up we have shortstop. And like we said, let's hope, cross our fingers, pray with Bobby Witt that he is okay, that the hand and forearm, there is no damage there. Doesn't sound like it is, so hopefully we're in the clear. Ellie De La Cruz apparently tweaked his batting stance this offseason with the hope of striking out less. Gunnar Henderson is dealing with that intercostal strain. Sounds like he's improving, but uncertain for opening day. CJ Abrams left Wednesday with quad tightness. Hopefully he is all right. Zach Neto still recovering from offseason shoulder surgery and will start the season on the IL. I talked to you guys about Gunnar's ADP right around 10, 11. Sounds like that is okay. It makes sense there. Anybody else on this list that you want to talk about that I feel like nothing has really changed too much besides Gunnar Henderson. There's Ellie, Abrams, Neto here. Anything?
I think Zach Neto might be a little overvalued at this point.
Overvalued, you're saying?
He's not going to be ready for opening day, almost certainly. I think that's pretty much been confirmed. Last quote I saw from Washington said that it could be the first month of the season that he misses still. I have not seen him cleared to hit yet. And last I saw, he was only throwing from 60 feet. So I'm worried that Zach Neto is just going to kind of be a wasted pick this season. He's going
outside the top 200.
200-ish.
Had 23 homers, 30 steals last year. Yeah. If you have an IL spot, I'm totally fine with that. If it's a league without IL spots, and most leagues have IL spots, right? I mean, mentioned the others because of NFBC, but most leagues have IL spots. I think as a late round stash, Neto's fine, especially if it's a categories format where you want that power speed combo.
Who are your favorites to target at shortstop?
Bo Bichette.
Yeah. Bo Bichette.
I think I've gotten Bo Bichette in every draft that you guys are not in.
Yeah,
I don't think I've drafted Bo Bichette once.
He is starting to rise a little bit, but he's
Not
still outside
enough.
the top 110. Yeah,
And I
he
don't
was
know,
going like 140.
Yeah, now
in the
he's
process.
Yeah, now he's like 110, like you said. I still rank him about 75. I think the likeliest scenario is he's the same player we saw first 5 years of his career. You know,
Hits 290,
he had some-
20 homers. Yeah.
he's still, even as bad as last year was, a career 290 hitter. His lowest batting average prior to last year was 290. He was as bankable for batting average as any hitter could be. And he played through a calf injury last year. It just seemed like it messed him up. It's 27 years old, so it's not like it's an age thing. Yeah, Bichette, he's not a great points league player because the plate discipline is bad. So he probably wouldn't be my answer to the question in that format. But in Roto, I like drafting Bichette. The thing is, I rank him 75, but I want to get him at the discount, and so I push it too far, and I keep missing out on him.
I like Mason Wynn a lot. I think we all do. He was either a sleeper or a breakout for all three of us, right?
Yeah. And I do want to point out he's having a horrible spring.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it personally.
Right.
I mean, I worry just because it might mean he's not the leadoff hitter, and that is a part of my excitement there.
I don't really think it'll change it. Like I think that risks. I think when we're digging into Mason Wynn's spring numbers, it risks making too much of spring numbers. That's just the sort of player that I don't think there's much to evaluate there with the spring.
Additionally, I think I said Isaac Paredes might be the most undervalued player in terms of where I rank them versus where they're going. I think it's actually Carlos Correa, who is still like 240 in ADP, 227 over the last week. And I've got him as a top 175 player. So, and that's not as aggressive as I want to be. So I get that it comes down to injury mostly for Carlos Correa, but when he's been on the field two of the past 3 seasons, he's been like a 900 OPS bat. I think he's still a must-start player when he's healthy.
I agree. And he averaged, I think, 139 games the 3 years prior to last year.
Mm-hmm.
So the injury risk might be overstated there. Last year he proved a lot in terms of how good he's going to be when healthy.
Yeah. Ideally, I'd like to get one of the top names in a points league. If I miss out on all of them, I do think Carlos Correa is a fine fallback option, especially in that format. I try for Bo Bichette in Roto category leagues, and if I miss out on him, it's usually Mason Wynn as the one I target in that format. Let's move over to Outfield, and we have a lot to update you on. Corbin Carroll had a back injury pop up this spring, but he has returned to play. Not much news on Acuna. He's still progressing. Sounds like he is targeting an early May return. He's still hitting tanks and batting practice, but
weird that there's just been
there's nothing,
like just zero discussion of Ronald Acuna in Braves camp. It's very I'm not saying it's odd in that they're hiding something. It's just weird that I haven't seen anything.
I guess there doesn't need to be though, right? If he's not playing in games, there's nothing to update. They're just slow.
Their lineup is so star-studded that everybody's not waiting with bated breath for him to return. It's just he'll get back when he's back. We'll
a lot of Strider updates. Nothing from Acuna.
Well, the pitching staff has more of a need.
Wyatt Langford had a mild oblique strain, but has returned to play. James Wood dealt with some quad tendonitis, but also has returned to play. Mike Trout will play right field instead of center this season. Maybe it's less of a toll on his body. That's the hope, at least. Christian Yelich recently made his spring debut after offseason back surgery. He believe he's already hit 2 home runs, so he's looked the part. Adolis Garcia tweaked his oblique earlier in March. He returned as the DH here on Wednesday. Brandon Nimmo is dealing with right knee soreness in addition to the plantar fasciitis in his foot.
Had you guys ever heard of a gel injection in a joint? That one was a new one for me. It was like a lubricant.
I don't
That's
subscribe to like Medical Weekly, so it's possible I
Yeah.
heard it and just didn't absorb it.
I just feel like I'm pretty up on injury terminology in
Yeah.
sports, and that was a new one for me.
I remember reading it the other day, and your face was like, "What?"
Yeah, this is like, all right. I guess
He's
the
back
Tin
to
Man.
He's back to baseball activities, though. I didn't make that up when I mentioned it during the auction. So
I didn't think you were lying.
well, I didn't trust myself. You're just pulling things out of your memory. But he is, and I think he's probably fine. I can't say for sure that the plantar fasciitis isn't going to become an issue during the year, but I don't think Nimmo's availability for the start of the season is really in question.
Jason Dominguez still cannot play left field. Jurickson Profar is dealing with a bone bruise in his wrist on a nasty diving attempt in the outfield. Parker Meadows has a nerve issue in his arm. He's optimistic for opening day, but we haven't been given a concrete update on that so far.
This one's so tough because it's just whenever the nerve heals, he'll be fine. And it's just it's you can't really like do an MRI and say, okay, it's starting to heal. It's just kind of, to a certain extent from what I was reading, it's just kind of, it'll come on one day, basically, was the way they talked about it.
All right. And then it looks like Roman Anthony will start the season in the minors, which we mostly expected. He's already been reassigned to minor league camp, although the way Red Sox players are getting hurt, I guess you can never say never.
Apparently he lost some weight because of a stomach thing too, though he looked great this spring. I think he struck out only once.
Yeah.
It does. I do get the sense Christian Campbell is ahead of Roman Anthony in the pecking order.
Yeah, I think it's Campbell, Anthony, Meyer in Red Sox camp.
Are you guys still in on Langford and Wood as breakouts? Because their ADP continues to rise. I mean, even with the Langford oblique thing, the past week, 38.1.
Yeah.
That is very high. James Wood, not nearly as high. He's around 50, 51 in ADP. Do you guys pay the price?
I mean, my interpretation of the term breakout doesn't require a value component to it. Like I expect them to break out this year.
But do you pay the price for them in fantasy?
No.
More likely Wood than Langford, just because he's going later.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd like to have them in theory, but it does seem like the ADP is getting too high.
I think Wood went 17th overall in one of the first 3 main event drafts.
I saw that early second round pick.
Yeah,
was Doc Eisenhower in it?
Those drafts are huge money. They're $1,750 buy-ins. I think it might even be more than that. And people are putting their money where their mouth is, and they're getting their guys. So if you see main event draft boards online somewhere, just know you might see things that are a little bit out of the ordinary. I guess we could say that. Are you guys fading Adolis Garcia and Brandon Nimmo, given these injuries? I feel like you were fading Adolis Garcia anyway, but
I'm clearly not fading Nimmo.
I know.
I enjoyed him. I thought he was a value pick. I thought it was a similar situation to Bo Bichette, guy who's always good at batting average. Not quite as good as Bichette, but good. Has an off year where he's kind of plagued by injury. But he was a 20 homer guy again, set a career high for steals. Like he looks like a 5 category player now. So I always thought Nimmo was a discount. I like that he's even more of a discount now, and I'm taking advantage.
I have him ahead of his ADP over the last week. Garcia I have right at ADP, but I don't think I've drafted yet.
Mm-hmm. Anything else on outfielders? Because there's so many of them, there is a chance that I missed something. Or does this look all right?
Buddy, I don't. There's just a lot of outfielders out there. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. I look back through the actual.
I'm looking through my. I've got a spreadsheet of spring notes, and it's 220 things long now. So it's going to take me a while if you want me to see if there's anything you missed.
Yeah,
you mentioned Profar.
Yeah, I mentioned Profar. There were smaller, like Taylor Ward was a little bit banged up, but he's back. So it's little things like that. I don't think there's anything else major that I didn't have here. Who are some outfielders that you target most?
Ooh, well, I would say I'm getting a lot of Nimmo. I already brought that up. I'm getting a lot of I'm getting a lot of Profar still because Because I think he's like, once he's signed with the Braves and he's projected to hit leadoff for them while Acuna's out, and they're kind of the details behind his unexpected breakthrough came to light when that signing happened. I was more optimistic about it, and he still goes like, well, with the injury news, he's going around 180 again, I think. So that's for a guy who was a top 20 or top 15 outfielder last year in a good lineup now. There was a report today that he's expected to begin swinging a bat again soon. So I am a little concerned, bone bruise and wrist. Okay, are they being too optimistic saying he'll be ready for opening day for sure? But it looks like he's clearing the hurdles he needs to clear for that to happen. So if you can get Profar for any kind of discount beyond what may have already been there, I think it's a good idea.
I'm drafting a lot of Dylan Cruz. I think if you want to get in on the excitement of James Wood and Wyatt Langford, but don't want to pay a top 4 or 5 round price, Dylan Cruz is there 6 or 7 rounds later. I'm drafting a lot of Tommy Edman. I know, Frank, you are as well. Would love to see him get second base eligibility.
Oh, yes.
I'm drafting a lot of Evan Carter, who I think people are just unfairly writing off after an injury-plagued rookie season. I am drafting a lot of Victor Robles and Jung-Hoo Lee.
I'm drafting a lot of the guys you are, it turns out. And I don't even know that I was high on them to begin with. But Victor Robles is kind of like my Nico Horner of the outfield now, where it's like, I need batting average and steals help. Oh, here's Victor Robles, 180 picks in. I'm not as confident in him as Horner, but he's like the right player at the right time. And I've come around to Cruz a lot too. If at the very least, I think he's going to be a stud for steals. He's supposed to hit second and play every day for the Nationals.
Should get on base a decent amount at least.
Yeah, I find I'm liking him. A couple late round options I like for 5 outfielder leagues that you didn't mention. Michael Conforto. As much as the Dodgers like him, you look at his numbers away from San Francisco last year, that could go really well.
Still outside the top 250 in ADP.
And TJ Friedel is a very, very cheap speed source. He was playing injured pretty much all of last year, but followed it through on the power. That was the most questionable part of the skill set. The steals were down, but I think those are likely to come back.
For me, Seiya Suzuki, Tommy Edman, Jorge Soler. I like Conforto a lot as well. Lars Nootbaar is someone I typically wind up with a lot of in those 5 outfielder leagues. I am interested in Victor Scott. I mean, if you need speed and you're chasing it late, and he is their opening day center fielder, I still think there is some upside in his game. Let's talk some starting pitcher updates and buckle up.
We're starting this 57 minutes in. We got about 40 minutes left of the podcast.
Yeah. Let's start at the top and slowly work our way down. The big one is Garrett Cole, who needs Tommy John surgery and will miss the season. Let's have a moment of silence here for Garrett Cole. Okay. George Kirby has right shoulder inflammation and will begin the season on the IL.
I think I laughed through the moment of silence.
You're not.
Is that disrespectful?
That's like very disrespectful.
That's the epitome.
How could you?
It's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do, actually.
Jacob deGrom is throwing with less velocity this season on purpose. Grayson Rodriguez is dealing with right elbow inflammation and received a cortisone injection. Seems unlikely for opening day. And Spencer Strider is nearing game action. All reports have been positive as he returns from internal brace surgery. So let's stop there. These are some big names, obviously. The NFBC ADP over the past 3 days, that includes 18 drafts. George Kirby at 141.8 after Brian Wu and Sandy Alcantara. Grayson Rodriguez at 276.3 after Bowden Francis, Jeffrey Springs, and Ranger Suarez. There's no IL spots on NFBC, of course.
That's the thing. Like we like to use NFBC ADP because you can shrink it down to those smaller samples, see what's going on recently in drafts. But that's where injury player values get crushed. And so I'm not sure the numbers you read off are going to be realistic to the average listeners.
I've got Kirby about 30 spots higher than that. I've got Rodriguez.
So tell me where you guys think they should go.
I've got Kirby 102. He's my SP 30.
We all have him right around 100.
Yeah, and I've got Rodriguez 61st, the 218th overall player.
I got him 192, so I'm a little higher, but right around 200 there.
All right, next up, Ohtani, the pitcher, has stopped throwing, and there's no timeline for him. Again, as a pitcher, as a hitter, he should be fine, assuming he's healthy. Jared Jones.
Should we drop a note on like how we actually feel about those guys beyond just I know you want to move fast, but like we're more optimistic about Kirby than Rodriguez, clearly. It does seem like it's just going to be a short delay at the start of the year for Kirby. You never know with arm stuff if it could lead to if there could be cascading effects, but it sounds like he wanted to keep pitching through it and they're just being extra careful with him.
And he did not have any kind of injection or anything.
Rodriguez doesn't have any structural damage in his elbow either, but just by virtue of it being the elbow, I think people are being more cautious. The timetable also is murkier, but he could be back in April.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's move on. Mention Ohtani, who as a pitcher is not pitching, and we don't really know when he's going to be back. Jared Jones added a sinker this offseason. Sandy Alcantara didn't have an innings limit. Then he did. Now he doesn't again. And I think that's where we're settling.
That was just reporters speculating that he had an innings limit, I think.
Yeah.
There is an innings limit. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery, and he's the team's best asset. A non-competitive team's best asset.
Yes. He's not going to be limited.
They don't want to say what the limit is, but they are going to protect him.
Yes, it's not a Mean Girls. The limit does not exist. There is some kind of limit, but it's not 140 innings.
Robbie Ray apparently picked up the changeup grip from Tarek Skubal. That seems pretty awesome. Luis Heel has a high-grade lat injury and will miss at least 3 months. Sean Manaea has an oblique injury and will start the season on the IL. Christopher Sanchez's velocity is up over 2 miles per hour on his sinker. So we're going to stop again right there. That's kind of the mid-tier of starting pitchers, I guess you could call it. And lots of interesting names. I mean, in particular, Robbie Ray and Christopher Sanchez have been, I think, two of the bigger risers this spring.
Yes. Ray and Alcantara are both in my top 40. Christopher Sanchez just outside of it. It wouldn't take much prodding to get me to move Christopher Sanchez up if you really wanted to. I'm
kind of annoyed at it because I was higher than the consensus on Sanchez coming in, but now, you know, you get the Nick Pollocks and the Eno Sarises chiming in, and so their stock is blowing up. And I don't know for Sanchez if I really want to do that, because we went through this last spring too when this velocity was way up on everything, and it just he wasn't throwing as many strikes during the season, so he had to back off. And
it hasn't been an issue for him this spring throwing strikes, but
yeah, it's spring though.
Yeah, no,
I just.
But he was just good last year. So
he's good. He's good.
Might be undervalued, and people are realizing, oh, Christopher Sanchez is undervalued. Let me pull him up the draft board.
That's fine. That's basically what I did with Robbie Ray. Just, he's dominating the spring. Oh, look, he was also dominating fresh off Tommy John surgery last year. Velocity's back up to the Cy Young season. And I think health's really the only concern for Robbie Ray.
And it wasn't arm injuries last year. It was a hamstring for a pitcher, which I'm not too worried about. So Ray, Sandy Alcantara, I expect big things from. Sanchez, I think, is a really nice rotation stabilizer as like an SP4. But I like all three of those guys in that range.
Yeah. I'm not going to list off every other update we got from starting pitchers since February, because again, we'd be here for the next hour or so. But some of the other biggest risers this spring have been Gavin Williams, Clay Holmes, Ryan Weathers, Dustin May is in the Dodgers rotation, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Will Warren, Max Meyer, Jack Leiter, Michael Soroka, and that's just some of them. I'm sure you guys have other names that you could think of that have been rising this spring, or anything else notable that you guys want to mention among starting pitchers, because this is the position that is changing on a daily basis. It is ever changing.
Yeah, this is mostly what I care about in spring. I think you can learn more from small samples with pitchers than you can with hitters. And of course, every sample in the spring is small. And I would say that the single two biggest risers this spring are Gavin Williams and Clay Holmes, as you listed them here. So I'm with you on that. Scherzer, he's been a riser. Soroka, because the big strikeout numbers that we saw as a reliever with the White Sox late last year have carried over to this spring. He is still, like, we consider him a riser. He's still not being drafted.
Yeah.
Just in the last week, NFBC, Soroka's 420.6 is his ADP.
Yep, he's being drafted in about 80% of leagues, and those are a lot of 15
really
too,
deep leagues.
so
yeah.
I took him in my TGFBI draft, so let's go Soroka.
Yeah, that makes sense. A league that deep, but for most people listening, you can get him with your last pick if you want him.
Yeah, I'm also moving Jose Soriano up a little bit. I've liked what we've seen from him. He's got a different shape and velocity on his slider that looks like it could be really effective. And like Ryan Weathers, I think Ryan Weathers might actually be the biggest riser just because he's gone from probably not being drafted to he's going to get drafted pretty much every roto league at least. So, yeah.
One more, Grant Holmes. Grant Holmes has been a big riser.
Yeah.
As well. Should be in the Braves rotation to start the season.
I'm not sure anything's actually changed with Grant Holmes. It's just people have been more open to the idea of him truly being a starter. So for that reason, but no, Gavin Williams. I don't have him on a team yet. I got to get him somewhere because I think he is most likely to be this year's Chris Sale, except probably not with him being halfway shut down in the second half. Like the way he's dominating with his fastball specifically, it could be a really big year for Gavin Williams.
You know who I thought of as this year's Chris Sale is Robbie Ray.
Yeah, I think Robbie Ray is the one there.
Yeah. But I mean, Gavin Williams could still be a huge breakout and huge winner. It's just, I guess I'm just drawing the comparisons to injury-prone pitcher who's a veteran who we haven't seen do it for a while, but we know he's still good. Can he stay healthy and put it together? So that's the hope.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess you could. Depends what you mean by. I mean, look, I was looking at last year's Deep Sleeper article. Garrett Crochet. Even by the end of spring training, he wasn't getting that drafted that much.
No.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Chris Bubich. Maybe he's this year's Garrett Crochet.
Favorite starting pitchers to target, and just give me names because we'll have more opportunities to talk about these next couple weeks.
Okay, high end Corbin Burns. That like boring Pablo Lopez, Aaronola, Justin Steele. Justin Steele definitely one of them. Carlos Rodon, Robbie Ray. All those sleepers we mentioned. I'm drafting a ton of those guys as well. Justin Verlander with like my last pick. I'm doing that a lot.
I got him in the reserve rounds last night.
I think I got him in the reserve rounds in TGFBI.
Yeah. Scott?
But not like a 12-teamer, right? You're not drafting Verlander there.
Maybe.
I took him in the reserve rounds of Memorial Magazine.
So more than at any other position, I try to be unintentional about what pitchers I take. There's the good glob, and I don't. It's a large and distinguishable mass, so I don't want to try and distinguish within it.
I have a larger list of pitchers I don't want to draft.
You could put it that way, sure. If I get a high-end guy, it's only because he falls, and the most likely one to do that I found is Chris Sale. So sometimes I've gotten him, but more likely, I like Max Fried because I think he's a safe source of ERA. I like Justin Steele because I think he is. I think people are just way too low on him, and he's a safe source of both ERA and WHIP, actually. And I would say what's changed most with my approach to pitching since we did the position preview is I'm emphasizing WHIP. This only applies for Roto, of course, but I'm emphasizing WHIP even more than ERA, possibly even more than strikeouts, because it's available more throughout the draft than strikeouts are. And so if to the degree I'm being selective about what pitchers I take, I want them to be good at WHIP. And I'm not the only one saying that, but I think there's a lot of truth to it.
My favorites to draft: Corbin Burns, Framber Valdez, Spencer Schwellenbach, Robbie Ray. I'd love to get him. I don't think I have any shares yet, but seems like it's going to be a little bit tougher to do now. Grant Holmes, I've drafted everywhere. I got him on NL Labor. I took him in TGFBI. So I'm hoping it does work out here for Grant Holmes.
Sean Manaea. I'm still drafting a lot of Sean Manaea. I think his injury seems like small potatoes compared to some of the injuries we've seen since. But he was the first injury, so everybody pulled him way down the rankings.
Relief pitcher updates. Felix Bautista made his spring debut about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. His velocity started way down, 4 miles per hour, but it has been climbing slowly. The next time he was out, I think the sinker was down 2.5 miles per hour. Yeah. So looks like it is slowly climbing up. Still don't know if he's going to be ready for opening day.
Command's been very iffy as well, yeah.
Lucas Erceg will pitch in the highest leverage spots for the Royals, even if it's the 9th inning. So could still be in the mix for saves there. Kyle Finnegan re-signed with the Nationals and looks to reclaim their closer gig. And we still don't know about these bullpens. The D-backs, the Red Sox, the Rockies, the Rangers, the Tigers, the White Sox. Maybe you guys feel differently. Feel free. But lots of names there, lots of bullpens. And I'm sure there's other things that have happened. It's like bullpens are so fickle, and for these teams that we don't know, we're just trying to read the tea leaves as much as we can to find out what direction these coaches and managers rather are going to go.
Kenley Jansen signed since the preview, right? Or had he already signed?
He might have, but yeah, it's worth Kenley Jansen to the Angels. Yep.
Yeah. I feel pretty comfortable saying Jason Foley's the one to target in the Tigers bullpen. And I know I'm in the minority there, just judging from his ADP, but the personnel hasn't really changed. I'm not saying
an awful spring for what it's worth.
Yeah, but I don't think that unless the stuff is just gone, which I haven't seen any reports suggesting that. I don't really worry about the results. AJ Hinch kept going back to him. I'm not saying AJ Hinch is going to be like preserving him for the 9th inning all the time, just because that's not how he operates. But I think he's going. I feel confident saying he's going to lead the Tigers in saves.
I didn't realize he had nine saves in September.
Yeah,
yeah.
They kept coming back to him. They would steer away at times, but they kept coming back.
Yep.
So I think he's a good bargain.
That's the only. I think it's Chris Martin. It's just weird that they haven't said it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, every week Bruce Bochy seems to suggest someone else could be the closer.
Yeah,
he's never really suggested Chris Martin could be the closer.
Yeah, he just pulls like some random guy you've never heard of.
Mark Church.
Yeah.
Who was the
Emiliano
other one?
Teodo. Their prospect Emiliano Teodo has 2 saves this spring, and he looks the part. He throws 98, 100 miles per hour. He's got a wipeout slider, but I believe he's already been optioned to minor league camps.
Yeah,
and Bruce Bochy said they still want to develop him as a starter.
Yeah.
Like he feels like Emiliano Teodo feels like their opportunity to it's like their mulligan for Emmanuel Clase.
Yeah, it's like just do it, man. I think he could be such a good closer right away.
Yeah,
he's only 24. He's only pitched at AA. I get wanting to like let's see what can happen.
I think the biggest things that have changed since we did a relief pitcher preview is just the sentiment on Robert Suarez has soured so much.
He's had a bad spring.
His velocity's been down this spring. Every closer's has. So I don't even know, like, I don't know why. I know why we would be especially worried about Robert Garcia because he's
Robert Suarez.
Robert Suarez. Robert Garcia is one of the guys Bruce Bochy has suggested could be a Rangers closer. So Robert Suarez can't afford to give up as much as other closers can. But if we're thinking all these other closers are going to regain their velocity, then probably Suarez is too. I think it's to the point where he's becoming a nice discount.
He was just also pretty bad in the second half.
And he's
pretty bad.
Fastball reliant too.
Yeah, I get it, but I think relative to I think he's now probably drafted in a range where he's not any riskier than anyone else.
He's at like 115 over the last month or over the last week.
Yeah, out in what are the closers he's being drafted? Because I think that number closers go earlier in NFBC, obviously.
He's kind of by himself. He's about 12 picks behind Ryan Walker. 15 picks behind Yohan Duran, and about 15 to 17 picks ahead of Jeff Hoffman. I'd rather have Hoffman.
I'd rather have Hoffman too.
And then
And that's over
McGill,
what time period? Because
last week.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe he isn't falling on average as much, but I'm seeing him go beyond like Trevor McGill and Tanner Scott in drafts that I'm a part of.
McGill is close for me.
Mm-hmm. And again, that is close to Robert Suarez, who has been a big faller here. Who are some of your favorites to target at relief pitcher?
So
Jeff
I don't
Hoffman.
like.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't like spending here ever. The earliest one, realistically, that I'm going to draft is Ryan Walker, and I think he was obviously an ace reliever last year. If he continues that with the closer role, and he had a fine audition last year, I think he's your chance at a stud closer without paying the price for one. But I'm just drafting whoever I think falls. So Trevor McGill, Jordan Romano, just Jeff Hoffman sometimes, and getting saves as cheaply as possible.
Yeah,
I'm okay with Kyle Finnegan as a third, preferably, but even second closer. Lucas Urseg, because I think he's actually going to be the front runner for saves in Kansas City, with Estevez being slow out of the gate here this spring.
Yeah, I'm drafting a lot of Urseg lately. It's kind of been like one early guy and then Urseg, whether that's an actually early guy like Mason Miller in yesterday's auction. I've taken Class A, I've taken Hader, or if it's more like Hoffman in like the 10th round. I really like Urseg as my second option. I think he's going to be good and get 20 to 25 saves at least. And then I'll take Calvin Fauché as my number 3 a lot. Just like one of my last picks. I think there's plenty of upside there.
Yeah, I like Jeff Hoffman a lot as a breakout this season. Been winding up with a lot of David Bednar as my second closer, and like taking the shot on AJ Puck. Justin Martinez is also electric.
Both of them, yeah.
Both looked really good this spring. I believe Martinez has given up a few runs. Puck hasn't. He's been lights out again, but he's a lefty and maybe they want to use him at different spots, but I still am taking him with the hopes that he winds up getting saves here with the D-backs.
Jordan Romano is kind of my version of David Bednar for you, I think.
I prefer
second closer.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I prefer Romano to Bednar, but sometimes I get Bednar. I used to like drafting Puck as like a speculative saves guy who could dominate ratios in the meantime, but he's going around. He might go too high for that at this point. And so Edwin Uceta is another one to mention there, given how brittle Pete Fairbanks is.
Yeah, like you said a lot.
All right, we're going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow with our mock draft mega stream, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to tune in. We'll be live for, 7, 8, 9 hours.
The whole day.
Yeah. We'll see you then. Bye.